Okay, welcome back to our presentation of the 3 objectives for Cerner EMR. Make us more efficient using it here at Bay Clinic. We've already covered auto texting. This video will cover macros. The objective of this video is to learn how to create, edit, and save macros. What is a macro? It's a built-in tool to reduce the duplication of effort. And who can use them? Well, physicians and staff can use them. It's available in the control fields of a patient's note. And why do we want to use macros? Because it reduces documentation effort. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what macros are. Activated macros will display desired information in a select control field without the need for data entry. Macros are only available in a specific control field that they were created. So don't be looking for them throughout the EMR unlike auto text. There is a technique to activate multiple macros at one time, and we'll review that in the video. In order to do that, the control fields have to be stacked up on top of each other. Okay, we're going to get started. We'll go right into ZZ Test David to start our macro program. Add a patient note, adult, general, chief complaint, okay, here's a totally blank note. You can see the control field here, right here. Visit detail, that's an individual control field. Visit type, accompanied by source of history, referral source. The chevrons here expand what's available for you to look at. Okay, so you normally would have to fill this out. If no macros are present, you won't see the M up here, and you won't see the M's in here. So there's macros already present here. To save a macro that you've completed, go to the visit history, and it's going to, every macro that's saved in the stacked field here with the visit details type accompanied by source of history, reference, referral source, and history limitations, it'd all be saved right up under visit information by right-clicking on that and saying save macro as. You can clear it right here. It'll clear the history, essentially zeroing it out. But we'll just save this as a cleared out one. We'll call this clean. I'll say create new. So you'd have to clear it and then use this, and then it would activate all these titles So this is a macro if you save it here, and if you save a macro in any of these in the other, that's how you save a macro. Here, if you include visit details, let's say, this would be pulled in by the computer when the patient checks in. If that was highlighted, include the PCP. If it's not recorded, you'd go ahead and put that in. Use Dr. Lund since I already have mine in here. So if you're rooming multiple people, again, you're going to right click under Dr. Lund right here, what's ever filled out. Save as a macro. It's only in this field that'll be available. Call it PCP Lund, create new. Most of the time it's going to be a scheduled follow-up. If you looked at their medicines, documented them in the EMR, you could highlight that. To make a macro of just these highlighted text here, you would go to the visit detail, right click it, save macro as visit detail basic. Might be better to be a little more specific, like date that. If we clear the whole field out, click there, bring in the macro basic. It activates all the things we want. The EMR has a little bit of problem with this because the other part of the program of our old Cerner doesn't connect to the new. So I'm just going to do it again. Dr. Lund, say OK. Here's for a basic follow-up. You're going to look at the medication. You may or may not need paperwork, but you could highlight that and save that as save regular follow-up. You're going to look at those kind of options. Click on it. Save macro as visit type. Regular follow-up. Create new. Not accompanied by anyone. The source of the history is usually the patient themselves. There's usually no referral source, and limitations in history, let's just make it all negative. And then for the basic, so these are all the fields we could create a macro for each one of these. It's really not necessary. Just go up here to the visit history and we'll save the whole thing. Right click, the macro as, we're going to say basic Lund, create new. And that's all there is to making macros, and a super macro that brings all these elements together. To prove that this actually works, you can clear it out, right click up here, hit clear. Again, that little bug with the PCP is going to come in here. Work through that, basic Lund, boom, all those fields are highlighted. If you don't actually, if they change their information, you could just change it. Family members present. I have a macro here with caregiver, daughter, son, stepson, etc. You can add on what you need in the macros that you use all the time. Another example would be, say they do have a physical impairment, and you want to note it. They actually don't use any device coming in, but they grab a wheelchair at the front desk and they use it. You could just put in a macro such as this: using wheelchair today in the office, but does not use assisted device at home. To save that text, if you type that in one time, you'd right click here, you'd get save as macro, go ahead and hit that and call it something. And that's a great overview of macros. They're used in the patient's note, and they're specific to the control field they're created in. Thank you. In conclusion, now you should have a very strong familiarity with what a macro is, how to be able to create your own in a given control field. Please share your experience with others here at Bay Clinic and let them gain familiarity with the Cerner EMR.